Hello and welcome to Nothing Exempt. I am Brian Piotr and I'm here with my co-host Nicholas Pardini. And the show topic today is going to be about droughts and how they're fake news. Nick,
Okay.
why don't you start us off?
Well, I'd like to say this show is brought to you by the Cause and Effect Report. The Cause and Effect Report is where you get um, quality, actionable research ideas about the stock market and the economy and other potential trade and investment ideas. However, it is not investment advice, and you still have to do your own additional research. It's just something that helps you think and maybe add to the existing research and the consultations you do with your current investment advisor. Now,
But that's because they're a sponsor of the show. If you go there, use the offer code Nothing Exempt for a discount, and then that's how you can support this show without having to give us any money. Okay,
yes.
Nick, why are droughts fake news?
Okay, well, I mean, I've done a lot of research on this, especially since I live in California. Droughts are a common conversation topic. I'm not saying there's no such thing as statistically unusually dry weather. That's not really the debate here. I'm just saying, due to modern human technology and um, the way that and infrastructure capabilities, there is no such thing as a drought where people would actually run out of water, whether it's for drinking purposes or agricultural purposes or washing your car purposes. Like, there's no, in any modern society, you're never going to run out of water. The only reason why you have so-called droughts is due to politics.
Right. And we know that to be true that even with $1 a gallon in taxes, you can get oil from the other side of the world, bring it over here in a big ship, refine it, put it in a truck, take it to a gas station right by your house, and you can have it for $3 a gallon. So there's no way that water would ever cost more than that. Like you can have as much water as you want at that price. It's just a matter of price, really. And then
But also,
if
that's not perfectly applicable because you use a lot more water than you do gasoline.
you only do because it's cheaper.
No, but people are supposed to, like, for health reasons, drink 1 gallon of water a day, and then showers and washing clothes and washing dishes and air conditioners and other uses of water. Water, like the total water consumption on average, is about at least 50 gallons a day.
But there's also a lot more water in the world. It's like two-thirds covered in water. So we can have as much as we want. You just go to the ocean and anybody can turn salt water into fresh water. It's just a matter of energy, time, effort.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like basically, there's a few. It's not one. The reason why there's really no such thing as a drought is one, you could build as many reservoirs as you need. So when you have a wet season, you can fill up all of those, and that can last for a long time.
Yeah, you if you use 100% of your capacity of the land for water, then you can be more efficient than we are today without all the problems. But even if you wanted to live someplace where it never rained, you could have 1 million people there if you had the money to just refine salt water and transport it. It's just a logistics problem. It,
Yeah,
it's not like it, it it's not like you can't have water if the free market's available because you can have as much as you want. The real problem is if you are a farmer that relies on rainwater and not irrigation of any kind, and your livelihood was dependent on rain. But that's it. And the free market could solve your problem too if grain prices were high enough. You just irrigate. We could bring water to you.
yeah, but even at low grain prices, irrigation is not that expensive if you're in a developed country.
No, it's not. If you're in a place where there's a lot of water, then like Brazil or the American Midwest, then it's not that expensive. It's not a problem.
Yeah, and the desalination, the research I've done, is according to the Orange County Water District, desalination sourced water that would only increase the average water bill by $3 to $6 a month for individual consumers.
That would be to supply 10% of the total water supply, right? It's not supplying their 100% of their water, but adding to the water supply and bringing another 10% of water supply to the system will only add $3 to $6
Yeah.
a month.
I mean, right now, the cost difference between importing water from Northern California is $1,800 per acre foot, and just no, it's sorry, I've got that wrong. It's $1,059 per acre foot to import water from other states or Northern California.
And if
Whereas,
anybody wants to know what an acre foot is, it's literally what's an acre? That area, that square, and then 1 foot deep of water. That's how they measure water.
that's a lot of water.
It's a big volume of water.
Yeah, and whereas desalination, that same water costs about $1,875 per acre foot. But a lot of the cost of water is hiring the people who run the water company, pipeline transport, and other things aren't just from the desalination process itself. And with solar energy that you could put in a lot of these desal plants, because they're out in the middle of the ocean, it's actually more efficient to use solar than build all the like the electric power lines underwater. It's not that energy intensive in terms of environmental risk.
You mean like island nations that have desal, right? They're the ones that are out in the middle of the ocean because like California's desal, those stations are on land.
Yeah, I'm talking. Some of them are building in the ocean too.
Well,
But
like the one that Poseidon's trying to build in Huntington Beach is uh, at the location of the old power plant. They already had inlet and outlet pipes built for the power plant, and then they were just going to use those to bring water in to desal and then back out.
okay, well, not the case there. But yeah, there's a lot of these are built in the ocean. So
I don't think that's true. I think the offshore desal, you're talking about like oil derricks and large boats and things like that that do have desal on board. Like cruise ships have desal on board. That's why you can use as much water as you want when you go on a cruise.
yeah. So I mean, why? And look at the whole country of Israel. It wouldn't like be able to support its current population without desal technology. Most of the
There's a lot of places where desal is being used, like Saudi Arabia and Israel and all over the Middle East.
and the Caribbean too. Sees a lot there.
Yeah, island nations everywhere. It's valuable to have desal because if it doesn't rain, everybody dies. Or you have to figure out how to fly it in. So it's a liability thing to have it if you're an island nation.
So then, why do you think? I mean, especially in drier places in the developed world like California and Australia, why? Like, what do you think is the main political factor that is stopping it from being developed in a way that makes sense?
Government management of anything. As soon as government takes over and decides how much they're going to build of something and how much it's going to cost, and like, say you want to build a dam, you have to take out a loan. Are you going to try to amortize your dam over 30 years, 50 years, 100 years? A business guy makes that decision based on something. The government makes that decision based on whatever they decide, whoever's on the committee. Just whatever. I want it to be paid off in 100 years. I want to be paid off in 200 years. What can they get away with politically? There's no business case that they really care about. I mean, maybe the limit on how much debt they can raise is really all that matters to them.
Well, I think it's more of environmentalism that is driving this.
Oh, environmentalism stops progress. So if you're talking about progress of any kind, environmentalism stops it.
Like, I don't know. Like here in California, and I've talked to a lot of my friends about this from outside of the state, and it really baffles their minds. And that is the Delta smelt controversy.
Yeah, of course, the Delta smelt is destroyed thousands of farmers' livelihoods in the state of California. Maybe tens of thousands of jobs are gone because of the Delta smelt. In 2000 and what 10? I forget. There was a ruling that said you have to turn the pumps off that's moving fresh water into the San Joaquin Valley from the Sacramento River because the pumps are killing the Delta smelt. And ever since, all that water just flows straight into the Pacific. Uh, you said it was like 1 trillion gallons.
It's 1.4 trillion gallons have is, are flown or have been dumped into the, it's not the Pacific, but the San Francisco Bay, because that's like its natural habitat, is the estuary area between where the water is purely fresh water versus where it's salt water. And the reason why a lot of environmentalists care about this little fish, which is this tiny, like 3-inch fish that is really only ecological purposes to be food for non-native fish such as bass, is that it is supposed to be a bellwether for the health of the overall wetland estuary ecosystem. So with no delta smelt, it means that the area is too polluted for support other life or too damaged to support other life. That's the argument.
And because of that, there have been thousands of different farms that have just not been able to receive water because of it. Like almond trees that take over a decade to start producing almonds were left to die because they couldn't have water that they were relying on. And all they had to do was move water over with some pumps and it would have been fine. But instead we get to have a statewide drought, man-made drought.
Yeah, they dump all the reservoirs to save this fish. It's completely ridiculous. Maybe like I don't. Maybe there are maybe some long term ecological consequences. I haven't studied a whole thing on it, but based on my knowledge on ecology, I don't really think California would miss out too much if that fish was gone. And it's on the verge of extinction, but I'm not really too sorry about it.
No, I don't really care about a fish over people.
Yeah, I think that really is it will if the water became a real problem, the fish will be sacrificed. But we're wealthy enough of a society in California that people can care about fish over people.
Well, it's weird because like mountain lions are something that people would support or tigers or something, but you lose your 2-year-old to a mountain lion, and I don't care if you're an environmentalist, you'll want something done to take care of the mountain lions. But that fish isn't harming anybody and doesn't have the potential to harm anybody. And so we're going to protect it. It's like a bunny rabbit or something that is defenseless, and so
Yeah,
we are
but
going to go after it.
but the value it adds to the to society is not as evident as like people like seeing mountain lions and rabbits and other things in the wild because they kind of I don't know they kind of like I guess provide like scenery and they also just have an ecosystem purpose. Whereas the delta smelt, it's just a tiny little insignificant fish. So that there's plenty of other species of similar fish in the ocean and in the rivers of California.
Yeah, and the main problem here is it's government management and not allowing you to make any solution for it either. Because say there's an engineering solution here that makes it so that the fish doesn't die, you're not even allowed to look at it. This is just a legal decision that says you can't do it, and it doesn't matter if you can come up with a way around it so that everybody can be happy. No, there's no compromise in this system. You lose if you're on the wrong end of environmentalists.
Well, that goes back to the whole desal thing. They fixed a lot of the desal so that they have these filters so that no like meaningful size fish or sea life gets stuck or sucked into the machine and killed by the filtration process. But the environmentalists are now complaining about plankton, microscopic plankton, being killed.
Yeah, which it's really hard to believe that the most abundant life on this earth is going to be affected by us turning some seawater into fresh water.
Yeah, and I mean I've tried to look at studies that definitively prove that increased salinity from desal is material enough in the ocean to kill sea life. There's nothing. There's like some ecologists who speculate that's what would happen, but that's more statistically significant than my opinion on where the stock market's going tomorrow.
And everything we take out of the ocean goes back to the ocean. It gets watered or flushed or rinsed and used and put back into the ocean. It's just a matter of the cycle and how long it takes. I
Okay,
mean,
so
even if it goes into the groundwater, it might come back up next time, and then it gets into a river and goes out to the ocean. But eventually, there's just this big cycle.
yeah, I mean, it's not like the world's going to run literally out of water.
No, there's water in the air. There's water everywhere. Like everywhere except for the Sahara Desert, and even there it rains occasionally.
So, the next question then to you is, um, what is the role of conservation?
To manage resources so that they can be enjoyed today. So we should be allowed to cut down dead trees. We should be allowed to manage wildlife population numbers as we wish, all for the enjoyment of people, not for the preservation of the thing. So if we decide that Yosemite is worth preserving for everybody, then we preserve it. We make it as nice as possible. We decide what we do with it. We manage it. It's not for posterity, it's for today. Because when does posterity get here? Never. It's always in the future. So
Well,
you have to
no.
manage things for today.
Yeah, but then what if you don't? What if your grandchildren never get to see a tiger in the wild?
There's more tigers in Texas in captivity than in the wild already. And that's India's problem, right? I don't have any say over what India does with their own land and animals.
I'm just okay. Or like for a North American example, what if we just let the hunters just kill all the buffalo?
Hunters would not like that. I would not like that. So I say we manage populations of animals that we want to be able to hunt so that they are as prosperous as possible.
Yeah,
And that's what we're doing now. We issue tags, we monitor populations. When populations get endangered, we stop hunting them for a while and protect them, and that's herd by herd across the United States. I think we do a pretty good job managing populations. Some things are off limits politically, like mountain lions in California are off limits for hunting, except when that mountain lion is a dangerous animal, like it starts eating people. So there's only a couple tags that are issued every year, but there's no reason for that.
hmm. Yeah. So that's like, but what about water conservation? Which was more of what I was trying to get to with this topic.
Water conservation should be if it falls on your land, it's your water, and you can choose to let it run off or not. And you have the right to sell your water rights that fall on your land to whoever wants to buy them separate from your property. And like in the state of Colorado, if water falls on your land, it's the state's water, it's not your water. You can't capture it in giant rain barrels and use it to water your plants all year round or something. That'd be illegal.
Yeah.
Things like that are ridiculous. But
Well,
it could be sold all the way down the line from one person to the next, water rights by property.
yeah, but at the same time, there are reasons for that. It's not just because the state wants to have a monopoly on water. I think a lot of it is a lot of water that if you collect that way could be caused like having like mosquito pits or other like things that are unsanitary or unhealthy to develop in people's properties.
Well, you should be able to sue somebody for mosquitoes coming off of their land when they have the responsibility to manage their own land.
Do you think an amateur water collector really has like the infrastructure, the expertise to process that water in a way that's going to be actually usable?
Yeah. In California, it happens all the time. Like they sell rain cisterns that you create a gutter system on your roof and it drains into the cistern. And then that cistern is full of water that you can use for your plants. Uh, one of my wife's relatives collects water and then waters his vineyard with it and creates grapes with water right off of his roof in the winter. He does that every year, and it's fine. It's not an open pit.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think that's the rule. The really only rule I think on that is that you shouldn't just allow people to have open pits in urban areas.
And I believe that would be like ponds. You mean not a pit?
No,
But
but even ponds though have like water that like creeks that flow in and out of it that keep the water flowing.
well,
At least a natural pond.
there's already ways to deal with this. There's two large industries that create uh, septic ponds, kind of. The dairy industry and cattle industry usually have large retaining ponds of very nasty water, and there's a lot of litigation on how to control and deal with it. The other industry is fracking. Fracking has huge amounts of wastewater that you cannot deal with by just dumping. And there's two large volumes of litigation on how to deal with dirty water on somebody's land. And that could be handled the same way on somebody's private land.
Yeah.
And you could also have associations that say, we don't allow you to create a giant pond.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're going to create a pond like they do like a drink at a golf course, you need to have it so there's the right pumps or circulation that doesn't become just like a mosquito pit.
In places where there's problems with mosquitoes, yeah, they should do something.
Or it doesn't become like smelly or toxic or any of the other things. Like still water is not generally a good thing to have sitting around.
Right, which is why most people would put it in a cistern and not have it be open if they want to use the water. Because if I have a house and I'm collecting water, I don't want mosquitoes on my property.
Yeah, but I've been to many emerging market countries where they don't use a cistern; they just let it sit, and that's not a good thing.
This isn't an emerging market country. This is a first world country.
I know, but part of the reason why we is a first world country because there are some rules for these type of things.
Yeah, but you don't have these rules. You don't have the Colorado rules in California.
No, I'm not saying we should have as many rules as we do now, but there needs to be some rules on this stuff. And it's my view on water conservation is that basically for things where it makes sense, like swimming pools or fountains or watering plants and golf courses and things like that, people don't need to drink the water or use it to like expose to people directly, like in a shower, cleaning dishes or things like that. We should try to use all that. That should all be recycled water. But yeah, however, like we shouldn't stop um, developing reservoirs and using desal and creating other new sources of water so that people don't have to be forced to limit what kind of shower they use or um, how much water like they're like Jerry Brown trying to propose like an absolute cap on water use per day and banning like double shower heads and not allowing people to have grass lawns. I think that's where it gets too far.
Yeah,
Like,
well, it's ridiculous that he's the reason for the season. He's the reason why there are water shortages to begin with.
well, yeah, it's Delta smelt controversy.
Yeah, the Delta smelt and the fact that he stopped dams from being built for environmental reasons the first time he was governor in the 70s and 80s. So the fact that he didn't have dams built to grow with the population and they still aren't built are part of the reason why we have a water shortage in California. And also the environmental uh, litigation stopping desalination. You know, when you have to put a $50 million of litigation to get your desal permits stamped so that you can start, that doesn't help the price of your water. It doesn't help the investors want to invest in your desal plant when the cost is extra high to get through the litigation and environmental regulation.
Well, that's why the largest water desal projects are south of the border.
Exactly, because the cost is only part of it. The actual fixed costs of producing clean water are only part of it. You double the cost of the whole plant when you have to go through the regulation and litigation phase. And you have to have your money sit for 3 years before they approve it. And there's this huge risk that they don't.
Do you have any more thoughts on this topic on droughts and water conservation and desal?
Yeah, I just want to say that when you fix prices or fix supply, that it doesn't work. Like if you wanted to say that water can't cost more than $1 per acre foot, or you want to say that gas can't cost more than $2 per gallon, that fixing the price does not solve any problems, and you have to fix problems at the source, and you can only do that by going to the free market, by stopping government from prohibiting solutions to your problems. Government says I'm the only one big enough to solve these problems and then puts up all these barriers from actually solving the problems. It creates a bad standard of living for everybody who has to live under that autocracy.
Well,
Like
isn't
it's
that
going
kind
to
of the irony is that the government could solve the problem by getting rid of the barriers that are creating the problem?
they could solve the problem by getting out of the way and it'd be really easy. They
Yeah.
could pass a law in Sacramento tomorrow that said desal is free from having to go through AQMD, build permits, safety regulations, and only be subject to water quality standards at the output, and that anybody could buy the water from them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think a desal plant should be any harder to build than a standard water processing facility.
It's harder because it's harder to build anything on the coast of the state of California because you are under multiple regulatory agencies that you otherwise do not have to deal with at all. So the Coastal Commission, that's something, if you want to build something on the coast, you have to deal with. Uh, if you wanted to build a water processing facility a matter of 10 miles off the coast, you probably don't have to deal with half the regulation you have to deal with if you want to build something on the beach like that.
Yeah. Well, that was a good conversation. And for if you like what we talked about on this show, or if you are somebody who's anti desal or has a good argument from an ecological perspective why the delta smelt is more important than we think it is, we'd love to have you on the show. You can contact us through Twitter at Nothing Exempt or our Reddit Nothing Exempt, or you can email us at nick@nothingexempt.com or brian at nothingexempt.com.
And also, if you're watching this on our first Google Hangout, this was our first attempt. Tell us what you thought. You can leave a comment below. And if you are listening to this on the podcast, you go to YouTube and check out the video and tell us if you like this format or not. We're considering scheduling shows on Google and broadcasting at set time so that you could watch and join with us live. But that's just an idea right now. We want to hear back from people who have been listening to us multiple times a week on what you thought, what you liked. Should I wear a suit? I didn't wear one today.
Yeah, I mean, neither did I. We could also try Periscope too, where people can comment live and ask questions.
Yeah, and if you're an audio engineer, we'd love to hear about the right way to do things for stuff like that, because like this, we're figuring out a method to record audio and video and have it be at a high quality to meet the standards of our listeners. So if you have suggestions on improvement, just let us know. And otherwise, next Wednesday we'll be back with a guest, and we look forward to seeing you then.